Tonight on an arrest in New York City. This after a young woman was killed last month inside her apartment in Tamarack. The Broward Sheriff's Office announced that the suspect, Sakina Thompson, is now in custody.
Right now, at this exact moment, Sakina Thompson is sitting in a Florida prison cell. She's staring at concrete walls, eating food from a plastic tray, counting down a life sentence that will never end. Meanwhile, the man she murdered for just posted honeymoon photos from Bali. Turquoise water, white sand beaches, his new wife smiling in a bikini with a ring that cost more than Sakina's entire legal defense. While Sakina rots in a 6x8 cell, Terry is sipping cocktails with someone who never asked him to prove anything. He moved on. He rebuilt. He found love again and walked down the aisle like nothing ever happened. And the most twisted part? Sakina didn't kill because he cheated. She killed for him, to prove she was loyal, to show she'd do anything to keep him. She thought eliminating the competition would bring him back. Instead, it gave him the perfect excuse to disappear forever. Let me take you back to July 13th, 2022. A woman's body lies on the floor of her own apartment in Tamarack, Florida. Blood everywhere, dozens of stab wounds, throat slashed so deep the coroner had trouble identifying the entry points. The killer? A woman who flew over 1,000 miles just to make this happen. Not a stranger. Not a random psychopath. Someone the victim knew. Someone she let inside willingly. And here's what makes this absolutely insane. The man both women loved wasn't even in the state when it happened. He was already planning his exit strategy. Already lining up his next relationship. Already moving his belongings out of Sakina's apartment while she was booking that flight to commit murder. He knew what she was capable of. The warning signs were everywhere. And he said nothing. Now here's the thing about loyalty that no one tells you. And if you don't subscribe right now, you'll miss the exact moment in this story where Sakina could have saved herself. Most of you will scroll past this. You'll tell yourself you'll come back. You won't. And 3 months from now, when you're in a situation that echoes this story, when you're tracking someone's location for the 15th time today, when you're reading texts that make your stomach turn, but you stay anyway, you'll remember you had the warning signs handed to you, and you kept scrolling. The subscribe button isn't for me. It's your bookmark for the lesson you're about to need. Because I'm going to show you the 3 specific moments where intervention could have prevented a murder, where friends saw the red flags and said nothing, where technology became a weapon and nobody stopped it. Your call. But when you're explaining to your therapist why you ignored your gut, don't say nobody warned you. Let's talk about Kayla Hodgson, but not the version you saw at the candlelight vigil. Not the purple balloons and the tearful tributes about how she lit up every room. I'm going to tell you who she actually was, because the truth is always more complicated than the obituary. Kayla was 23 years old, a flight attendant who loved her job, loved meeting new people, loved the freedom of being 30,000 feet above everyone else's problems. Her Instagram was full of sunset photos from hotel windows, cocktails with coworkers, that carefully curated life that made everyone think she had it all figured out. But here's what nobody mentions in those memorial posts. Kayla knew about Sakina. She absolutely knew Terry had a girlfriend back in New York. Text messages recovered from her phone show her friend Ashley warning her 3 separate times. He's still with her, Kayla. This is messy. Walk away. And you know what Kayla said? Love always wins. She just doesn't want to let go. 2 days before she died, she posted that exact phrase on her Instagram story with the purple heart emoji. Love always wins. Her friends tried. They really did. But Kayla had convinced herself this was different, that Terry was choosing her. That time would solve everything. She wasn't naive. She was hopeful. And that hope cost her everything. The worst part, the detail that makes this whole thing so much darker, she had started looking at wedding venues. Her search history from the week before her death shows she'd been browsing destination wedding packages in Cabo. She thought she was building a future. She had no idea she was being erased from someone else's. Now let's flip the script and talk about Sakina Thompson, because calling her a monster is too easy. 28 years old, successful nail technician in New York City, her own apartment, her own clientele, financially independent. From the outside, she had her life together. But when you look closer, when you read the therapy notes her lawyer tried to submit as evidence, you see the pattern. Every single man in Sakina's life had left her for someone else. Her father walked out when she was 7. Didn't just leave her mother. He moved in with his secretary and started a whole new family 3 blocks away. Sakina would see them at the grocery store. This man who shared her DNA treating other kids like they mattered more. Her first serious boyfriend in high school cheated on her with her best friend. Her college relationship ended when he proposed to someone else 6 weeks after their breakup. And then came Terry, the man she thought was different, the man she'd been with on and off for 4 years. Those TikTok videos everyone laughed at, the ones where she's talking about throwing hands and protecting what's hers, those weren't jokes. Those were warnings wrapped in bravado, cries for help disguised as entertainment. But we all just scrolled past, hit the like button, left comments like, "Period sis," and "mood," without ever stopping to think what happens when someone who talks like that actually snaps. Her nail salon customers said she talked about Terry like he was oxygen, like she couldn't breathe without him, like her entire identity was wrapped up in being his woman. And then there's Terry, real estate agent, smooth talker, the kind of guy who knew exactly what to say to make you feel seen. He wasn't some obvious villain. He didn't hit women or scream or throw things. He was worse. He was a coward who weaponized hope. Police found 3 phones when they searched his car. 3 separate devices. One for work, one for Sakina, one for Kayla. Deliberate separation, calculated compartmentalization. His friends, the guys he played basketball with every Thursday night, they knew everything. Group chat messages show him literally asking for advice on playing both sides till I figure out which one's worth it. He told his boys he was waiting to see which relationship had more long-term potential, like he was test driving cars instead of destroying lives. And here's the detail that should make your blood boil. The detail the prosecution could never quite prove, but phone forensics strongly suggested. In the weeks before Kayla's murder, Terry told Sakina he'd marry her if she handled the Kayla situation. Not explicitly, never directly, but enough vague statements, enough implications, enough, "I wish she'd just disappear," comments that Sakina heard permission. She heard a green light. She heard the man she loved telling her that removing the obstacle would bring him back. The prosecution couldn't make it stick in court. No recording, no written confession. But the pattern was there. And Terry knew exactly what he was doing. June 30th, 2022. Sakina Thompson sat at her kitchen table in Queens at 2 in the morning, laptop open, Amazon cart loaded. She'd been searching the same phrase for 3 hours straight. How to hide a GPS tracker. How to install a GPS tracker without someone knowing. Best hidden GPS tracker for cars. 47 searches that night alone. Her browser history read like a stalker's manual, and nobody in her life had any idea what she was planning. She clicked purchase on a magnetic GPS tracking device at 2:37 a.m., paid extra for overnight shipping. The next morning, she waited by her door like a kid on Christmas, and when that package arrived, she didn't hesitate. She walked straight to Terry's apartment building, waited until he went upstairs, and attached that tracker to the undercarriage of his white Range Rover. 3 minutes, no witnesses, no second thoughts. From that moment forward, she watched his every move. Think about what that means for a second. Every time Terry drove to Kayla's apartment, Sakina knew. Every time he stayed overnight somewhere he claimed was a work trip, she had the address. Every lie became visible in real time. Every betrayal documented with timestamps and coordinates. This wasn't just checking your partner's location once or twice. This was 300 plus pings a day. Obsessive monitoring that turned her phone into a weapon and her mind into a prison. Now I want you to ask yourself something, and be honest. How many times have you checked your partner's location today? Twice. 5 times. 10. At what point does checking become tracking? At what point does concern become obsession? Because the difference between Sakina and a lot of people watching this video right now is just a matter of degree. She took it further, but the impulse? The need to know, to verify, to catch them in a lie? That's not rare. That's everywhere. The turning point wasn't the tracking itself. It was what Sakina did with the information. A healthy person sees proof of cheating and leaves. They cry, they scream, they block the number and move on with their lives. But Sakina saw proof and started planning. She didn't want to escape the relationship. She wanted to eliminate the competition. And that shift, that moment when tracking becomes hunting, that's where obsession turns lethal. Let's talk about the Instagram block, because this is where most people miss the danger. Kayla blocked Sakina on July 8, 2022, 5 days before the murder. Sakina had been sending messages, not threats exactly, but pointed questions. How long have you known him? Does he tell you he loves you too? Do you know what you're doing to his family? Kayla didn't respond to any of them. She just hit block and thought that was the end of it. But here's what nobody tells you about blocking someone. When you block a person who's already obsessed, already monitoring, already losing their grip on reality, you don't protect yourself. You escalate them. Because in their mind, blocking isn't a boundary. It's disrespect. It's you telling them they don't even deserve a response, that they're so insignificant you can just erase them with one tap. And for someone like Sakina, whose entire life had been defined by people choosing others over her, that block was the ultimate dismissal. She testified about it later in court, and the way she said it still gives me chills. She blocked me like I was nothing, like I didn't even exist, like 4 years with him meant less than 4 weeks with her. The prosecutor tried to use it against her, tried to show premeditation and rage, but what it really showed was pain. Twisted, dangerous, homicidal pain, but pain nonetheless. Sakina didn't see herself as a killer. She saw herself as someone fighting for survival, for relevance, for proof that she mattered. And here's the paradox that Kayla never understood. By blocking Sakina, she removed her ability to monitor the threat. When someone can see your posts, read your stories, watch your movements, they're gathering information, but they're also releasing pressure. They're still connected, still part of your world, even if it's just digitally. The second Kayla hit that block button, Sakina went dark. No more Instagram stories to obsess over. No more photos to analyze. Just silence and imagination. And imagination is always worse than reality. Now we need to go back to Memorial Day weekend, 2022. Miami nightclub, music pounding, drinks flowing. Hundreds of people packed into a space that smelled like expensive cologne and bad decisions. Terry and Sakina flew down from New York for a party. They were in a good place that weekend, or at least that's what Sakina thought. Matching outfits, couple photos, the kind of public display that said we're solid to everyone watching. But here's what Sakina didn't know. Terry brought her to that club to meet someone. Not directly, not obviously, but he orchestrated the whole thing. He introduced Kayla to Sakina's cousin Marcus, who was also at the party. Marcus and Kayla talked for 20 minutes, exchanged numbers, and Terry stood there watching the whole interaction like he was directing a play. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was creating plausible deniability. Marcus didn't tell Sakina about meeting Kayla until after the murder. Didn't mention that Terry had specifically brought him over to where Kayla was standing. Didn't think it was important. But phone records show that the same night, from the same nightclub bathroom, Terry sent 2 text messages 4 minutes apart. To Kayla, can't wait to see you again. To Sakina, I love you so much, baby. For minutes between declarations, 2 completely different women, one man building a catastrophe brick by brick. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't a man who got caught up in feelings and didn't know how to handle it. This was engineered chaos. Terry wanted both women. He liked the validation, the attention, the power of being desired by 2 people at once. And he was banking on them never finding out about each other. Or if they did, that they'd blame each other instead of him. He constructed this situation knowing someone would eventually get hurt. He just never thought it would go this far. July 11th, 2022, 2 in the morning. Sakina couldn't sleep. She'd been watching that GPS tracker app for 6 hours straight, watching the little that represented Terry's car, sitting motionless outside Kayla's apartment complex. He'd told her he was in Miami for a real estate conference, sent her a photo of a hotel lobby that reverse image search would later reveal he pulled from Google. But his car hadn't moved from Tamarack in 9 hours, and Sakina's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold her phone. That's when she opened a new browser tab and searched for flights. New York to Fort Lauderdale, one way, leaving in 14 hours. She didn't think about it, didn't call a friend, didn't talk herself down, didn't do any of the things a rational person does when they're spiraling. She just clicked purchase, entered her credit card information, and confirmed a seat on a 6 a.m. flight that would land her in Florida by 9:30 a.m. $647 for a ticket she booked in rage. At 6 in the morning on July 12th, while most of New York was still asleep, Sakina was watching YouTube tutorials on her phone. How to set up a fake Uber account. How to avoid facial recognition on security cameras. How to clean a crime scene with household products. Her search history from that morning reads like a murder manual. And the most haunting part is she was watching these videos in an airport bathroom, 30 minutes before boarding, like she was cramming for an exam. 11 a.m. She's at her apartment packing a bag. Black hoodie, black pants, COVID mask, gloves, a hat she'd never worn before. But here's the detail that absolutely destroys me. Forensics found she also packed a bottle of Chanel No. 5, the exact same perfume Kayla wore. Investigators think she wanted to smell like her, to understand what Terry found so appealing, to literally step into the woman's identity before erasing it. She packed her son's ultrasound photo too, tucked into the side pocket of her carry-on. 3 months pregnant, flying across the country to commit murder, bringing a photo of the baby she was carrying. 3 in the afternoon, she called her mother. Casual conversation, nothing unusual. Asked about her nephew's birthday party. Talked about the weather. Said she had a client coming in later that needed a full set. Normal daughter things, normal life things, while her packed bag sat by the door and her flight confirmation glowed on her phone screen. Her mother testified later that she heard nothing wrong in Sakina's voice. No stress, no tension, no indication that her daughter was about to throw her entire life away. 9 p.m. She leaves a note for her son's babysitter. Back tomorrow, emergency. That's it. No explanation, no details. The babysitter didn't think twice about it because Sakina occasionally flew to Miami or Atlanta for nail product conventions. This seemed normal, but Sakina knew she might not come back. She knew there was a chance this would end with her in handcuffs or worse. And she went anyway because in her mind, a life without Terry wasn't worth living. July 13th, 2022, 4 in the morning. Security footage shows Sakina Thompson arriving at Kayla's apartment complex in a car she ordered through that fake Uber account. But here's what makes this absolutely calculated. She doesn't go straight to the door. She circles the building 3 times in that car, studying the layout, looking for cameras, mapping her escape route. The driver later testified he thought it was weird but didn't say anything because she tipped him $50 in cash. For 17 a.m., she gets out of the car 2 buildings away from Kayla's unit. The security guard working that night remembers her because she asked where the stairs were, not the elevator. Specific question, deliberate choice. He pointed her toward the stairwell and watched her disappear. No camera coverage in that stairwell. She knew that somehow, either from previous research or pure instinct, she climbed 2 flights of stairs and approached Kayla's door. Now here's where this gets absolutely chilling. Kayla's last Instagram story posted at 3:47 a.m., just 13 minutes before Sakina arrived. A photo of her apartment with fairy lights glowing, a purple heart emoji, no caption. Investigators debated for months what that post meant. Was it random? Was it a signal to Terry? Or did Kayla somehow sense something was wrong? Some subconscious need to document that moment, to leave proof she was alive and unafraid? For 19 a.m., Sakina knocks on the door. We know the exact time because the neighbor across the hall had a video doorbell that picked up audio. 3 soft knocks, a pause, then a voice. Kayla, it's me. I just want to talk. Calm, controlled, no aggression in the tone. The kind of voice that doesn't set off alarm bells. And Kayla, half asleep, probably thought it was a friend or a neighbor with an emergency. She opened the door. The prosecution argued Kayla wouldn't have opened the door if she felt threatened, that she must have recognized Sakina's voice or believed the request was genuine. The defense claimed Sakina forced her way in, that the door opened and she pushed through. But the evidence tells a different story. No forced entry. No defensive wounds on Kayla's hands. No signs she tried to run or fight back immediately. She let Sakina inside, probably still processing who was standing in her doorway at 4 in the morning. And then there's the 10-hour window that nobody can fully explain. Sakina arrives at 4 a.m. The 911 call doesn't come through until 3 p.m., 11 hours unaccounted for. 11 hours, where something happened inside that apartment that only one person survived to talk about. Forensic evidence suggests Kayla died around 5:30 a.m., about 70 minutes after Sakina arrived. So what happened during those 70 minutes? And what was Sakina doing for the 9.5 hours afterward? Crime scene investigators found 2 wine glasses on the kitchen counter, both with DNA evidence. Kayla's and Sakina's. They'd been drinking together. Kayla's diary was open on the coffee table to a blank page, like she'd been about to write something and never got the chance. Her phone was plugged in, charging on the nightstand. Last activity at 5:41 a.m. A text to Terry that just said, "We need to talk." He never responded. Sakina's testimony about what happened in that apartment changed 3 times. First version, she said they argued and she blacked out, woke up and Kayla was dead. Second version, she claimed Kayla attacked her first, that it was self-defense. Third version, the one she gave on the stand under oath, she said they talked for hours. About Terry, about love, about who deserved her more. And according to Sakina, Kayla laughed at her, looked her in the eyes and said, "He chose me. You need to accept that." The prosecutor destroyed that testimony in cross-examination. You don't stab someone dozens of times because they laughed. You don't slash someone's throat ear to ear because of a conversation. You came here to kill her, didn't you? And Sakina, staring straight ahead, said something that made the entire courtroom go silent. "I came here to make her understand. She's the one who made it permanent." Like the murder was Kayla's fault for not submitting, for not walking away, for not surrendering Terry without a fight. After Kayla died, Sakina stayed in that apartment until early afternoon, cleaned blood off surfaces with Lysol wipes she found under the sink, changed out of her bloody clothes into Kayla's outfit, a detail so disturbing the jury visibly reacted when they heard it. She threw her original clothes in a dumpster 3 blocks away. She ordered another fake Uber, rode back to the airport, and boarded a flight to New York like nothing happened. Left Kayla's body on the floor, left the door unlocked, left a woman's entire life ended and walked away. October 14th, 2025. 3 years after Kayla's murder, Sakina Thompson finally stood trial in a Broward County courtroom. Her lawyer, a public defender named Rose Meritzel, had advised her not to testify. Standard defense strategy in murder cases. Let the prosecution carry the burden of proof. Don't give them ammunition. But Sakina insisted. She wanted to tell her side, wanted the jury to understand why she did what she did. And that decision, that choice to take the stand, sealed her fate in ways her lawyer never anticipated. The prosecution had already laid out their case methodically. GPS tracker receipts, flight records, security footage, DNA evidence from the glove in Kayla's bathroom trash. They showed the jury text messages between Sakina and Terry, messages where she begged him to choose her, where she threatened to handle things myself if he didn't cut Kayla off. They presented her search history, those 47 queries about hiding tracking devices, those YouTube tutorials on avoiding cameras. It was damning, airtight, the kind of evidence that makes defense attorneys wake up in cold sweats. But when Sakina took the stand, something shifted in the courtroom. She wasn't nervous, wasn't crying or trembling or showing any of the emotions you'd expect from someone facing life in prison. She sat down, adjusted the microphone, and looked directly at the jury with this eerie calm, like she'd been waiting years for this moment, for someone to finally let her explain. Her lawyer asked the standard opening questions, establishing timeline and relationship history, building toward the self-defense narrative they'd planned. And then the prosecutor stood up for cross-examination, and everything fell apart. Assistant State Attorney Tanya Johnson didn't raise her voice, didn't grandstand, just asked simple, direct questions that Sakina couldn't dodge. "You flew over 1,000 miles to confront Kayla, correct?" "Yes." "You wore a disguise, correct?" "Yes." You used a fake Uber account to avoid being traced, correct? Yes. Every answer building the case brick by brick. Every admission tightening the noose. But then came the exchange that broke the internet. The moment that got clipped and shared millions of times across social media. Johnson asked, "You killed Kayla Hodgson because she blocked you on Instagram, didn't you?" And Sakina, instead of denying it, instead of deflecting or claiming self-defense, said something that made the entire courtroom inhale sharply. "I killed her because she thought she could replace me." Not take him. Not steal him. Replace. That one word revealed everything. The prosecutor seized on it immediately. Replace you? Replace you in what? And Sakina's response came out cold, factual, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. In his life. In his bed. In his future. She walked in like I was nothing. Like 4 years didn't matter. Like she could just erase me and take my place. Johnson pressed harder. So this wasn't about love. This was about ego. Sakina's face hardened. This was about respect. About making her understand that you don't get to treat people like they're disposable. The irony was suffocating. Sakina murdered someone because she felt disposable, then made Kayla the most disposable thing imaginable. A human life reduced to an obstacle, a problem to solve, a replacement to eliminate. And she still didn't see the contradiction. The jury watched this exchange with visible horror, several members shaking their heads, one woman in the back row wiping tears. This wasn't a crime of passion anymore. This was someone fundamentally broken trying to justify the unjustifiable. Then came the pregnancy reveal, and this is where Sakina's lawyer probably wanted to disappear into the floor. The defense had planned to introduce the pregnancy as a sympathy element, proof that Sakina was protecting her unborn child when Kayla allegedly attacked her. But the way it came out on the stand backfired spectacularly. Sakina testified that she was 8 weeks pregnant when she booked that flight, when she packed that bag, when she knocked on Kayla's door at 4 in the morning. Johnson let that statement hang in the air for a full 10 seconds before responding. You were carrying Terry's child when you murdered Kayla Hodgson? Yes. You flew across the country, 8 weeks pregnant, to commit premeditated murder? Sakina tried to walk it back, claimed it wasn't premeditated, that she only wanted to talk. But Johnson pulled out those YouTube searches, those tutorials on cleaning crime scenes, that order for the GPS tracker placed weeks earlier. This is what just wanting to talk looks like to you. The jury forewoman later gave an interview where she said the pregnancy detail made everything worse, not better. We thought maybe there was some moment of insanity, some snap decision driven by emotion. But she planned this while pregnant. She chose violence while carrying a baby. That's not passion. That's calculated evil. And she was right, because the prosecution had already established through phone records that Sakina knew about the pregnancy before booking that flight. She Googled flying while pregnant first trimester. The same night, she bought the plane ticket. Then Terry took the stand. And if you thought this case couldn't get more disturbing, you were wrong. The prosecution called him as a witness, and he walked into that courtroom looking like he'd aged 10 years. Suit that didn't quite fit, hair graying at the temples, hands shaking as he placed them on the Bible to swear in. He refused to make eye contact with anyone, not Sakina, not Kayla's family sitting in the front row, not even his own lawyer who'd advised him to plead the fifth. Under oath, Terry admitted things that made even his own attorney flinch. I told both of them I loved them. I meant it both times. The prosecutor asked him to clarify, to explain how you can mean, I love you, to two different women simultaneously. Terry's response was pathetic in its honesty. I love different things about them. Sakina made me feel needed. Kayla made me feel excited. I didn't want to choose. Like he was talking about ice cream flavors, instead of human beings, whose lives he destroyed. The bombshell came when Johnson asked about his communication with Sakina in the days before the murder. Did you tell the defendant that Kayla meant nothing to you? Terry hesitated, looked at his lawyer, then admitted, yes. On July 10th, I told Sakina that Kayla was just a fling, that she didn't matter. 3 days before the murder. 3 days before Sakina flew to Florida and eliminated the woman Terry claimed didn't matter. The prosecution couldn't prove he directly ordered the hit, Couldn't show explicit coordination, but the implication hung heavy. The defense tried to flip this, tried to argue that Terry manipulated Sakina, that he pushed her to violence through psychological abuse and mixed messages. And honestly, there was truth in that argument. Terry absolutely created the conditions for this tragedy. But the law doesn't care about emotional manipulation when you're the one who bought the plane ticket, wore the disguise, and used the knife. Sakina made the final choice. Terry gave her the motive, but she executed the plan. His final statement on the stand became another viral moment, but for all the wrong reasons. The defense asked if he had anything to say to Kayla's family, and Terry, voice breaking, said, "I wish I'd just been honest." That's it. Not "I'm sorry." Not, "I take responsibility." Just, "I wish I'd been honest." Like the problem was poor communication instead of his cowardice, getting someone killed. Kayla's mother, who'd sat silently through weeks of testimony, completely lost it. She stood up screaming, "You wish? My daughter is dead. You wish?" Bailiffs had to escort her out while she sobbed, and the sound of her grief echoed through that courtroom like an accusation. The judge called a recess, and when they returned, Terry was excused from the stand. He left the courthouse that day and disappeared from public life completely. No statement to the press, no interview requests accepted. Just gone, like he'd always planned to be. The verdict came back after 4 hours of deliberation. Guilty of first-degree murder. The jury rejected the self-defense claim, rejected the crime of passion argument, rejected every excuse Sakina's lawyer had constructed. When the forewoman read that verdict aloud, Sakina didn't cry, didn't scream or collapse or show any of the dramatic reactions you see on TV. She smiled, a small, quiet smile that made several jury members visibly uncomfortable. A reporter caught up with her in the hallway after sentencing, asked why she was smiling, and Sakina's response was the most chilling thing she said through the entire trial. "Because he'll never forget me now. Kayla's already fading. But me? I'm the one he'll think about forever." Even in defeat, even facing life without parole, she was still competing for Terry's attention, still measuring her worth by whether a man who abandoned her would remember her name. That's not love. That's pathological. Right now, as you're watching this video, Sakina Thompson is sitting in cell block C at Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida. She wears the same beige uniform every single day, eats the same rotating menu of institutional food, and follows the same schedule that will define the rest of her natural life. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., breakfast at 6, work detail in the laundry facility from 7 to 3, dinner at 4:30, lockdown at 9. No parole hearings. No possibility of release. Just decades of the same walls, the same faces, the same crushing routine until she dies. Prison records show she's racked up 14 infractions in 3 years, all for the same violation. Unauthorized contact attempts with Terry. She writes him letters constantly, sometimes 3 or 4 a week, pouring her heart out on prison stationery that gets stamped and logged and sent to an address that returns them unopened. Guards say she talks about him like they're still together, like this is just temporary separation instead of permanent consequence. Other inmates avoid her because she can't hold a conversation without bringing him up within 5 minutes. Her son turned 3 years old last month. He lives with Terry's parents in North Carolina, has no memory of his mother, doesn't ask about her because nobody's told him the truth yet. Sakina hasn't seen him since sentencing. His grandparents made the decision early that bringing a toddler to visit a maximum security prison would do more harm than good, and honestly, they're probably right. But that means Sakina is watching her child grow up through photographs her former mother-in-law occasionally sends, watching him hit milestones she'll never witness in person. A prison counselor who works with her leaked information to a journalist last year, information that should horrify you but probably won't surprise you. Sakina still talks about Terry like they're in a relationship, still refers to him as "my man" in therapy sessions, still believes that once he processes everything, he'll come visit her, he'll bring their son, he'll stand by her the way she stood by him. The delusion is so complete, so impenetrable, that mental health professionals can't break through it. She's built a fantasy world inside her head where loyalty eventually wins, where her sacrifice meant something, where suffering proves love. Meanwhile, Terry got married in June of 2024, 2 years after Kayla's death, 18 months after Sakina's conviction. His wife is a pharmaceutical sales rep named Jennifer, 31 years old, no social media presence, completely disconnected from the world that destroyed 2 women before her. They had a small ceremony in Asheville, North Carolina, 20 guests, no media coverage. He changed his last name legally when they got married, took her surname, wiped his old identity clean like he was rebooting a computer. Public records show he also changed his first name. Terry doesn't exist anymore, at least not on paper. He's living under a completely different identity in a state where nobody knows his history, working a sales job that doesn't require background checks, playing the role of normal husband to a woman who has no idea what he's capable of creating. And before you think he got away clean, before you assume he's sleeping peacefully at night, consider this. He tried to sell his story to 3 different streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, and a smaller production company all received pitches from Terry's agent in 2023. He wanted to do a documentary called Caught Between Two Worlds, positioning himself as the tragic figure who lost 2 women he loved to circumstances beyond his control. The backlash was instantaneous and brutal. Social media tore him apart. Kayla's family threatened legal action, and all 3 companies dropped the project within 48 hours. But the fact that he tried, the fact that he saw profit potential in 2 destroyed lives, tells you everything about who he really is. He lives in a suburb now, works 9 to 5, comes home to a wife who doesn't track his location or question his late nights because she doesn't know she should. And maybe that's enough punishment for him, living with the knowledge of what he caused, watching the news cycle occasionally resurrect Kayla's name during true crime retrospectives. Or maybe he sleeps fine. Maybe his conscience doesn't bother him at all. Maybe he's convinced himself he was just unlucky to be involved with 2 unstable women. We'll never know because he refuses to speak publicly. Kayla's mother, Diana Hodgson, hasn't worked since her daughter's murder. She quit her job as a bank manager 3 months after the funeral, couldn't function, couldn't handle small talk with customers about their day when her daughter didn't have days anymore. She applied for disability based on severe depression and PTSD, got approved, and now lives on a fixed income in the same house where Kayla grew up. Kayla's bedroom is exactly as she left it. Clothes still in the closet, makeup still on the dresser, flight attendant uniform hanging on the back of the door. Diana's therapist has begged her to pack up the room, to create some separation between past and present. But she can't do it. Says it feels like erasing Kayla completely, like admitting she's never coming back. Neighbors check on her regularly because there are days she doesn't leave the house, doesn't answer the phone, just sits in that bedroom, surrounded by her daughter's things, and tries to understand how this became her life. Her husband left 2 years ago, couldn't handle the weight of her grief on top of his own, and now she's alone with memories and what-ifs. But Kayla's sister Lauren turned her pain into purpose, and this is the only redemptive part of this entire story. She quit her marketing job and founded the Hodgson Foundation in 2023, a nonprofit dedicated to helping young women recognize the warning signs of dangerous relationships. They run workshops in high schools and colleges, teaching girls how to identify love bombing, how to spot manipulation, how to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. They've helped over 200 women so far, some who were being tracked by partners, some who were trapped in relationships they couldn't escape. The foundation hosts an annual memorial event on July 13th, the anniversary of Kayla's death. They release purple balloons, Kayla's favorite color, and every year the attendance grows. Last year, over 500 people showed up. Strangers who never met Kayla, but connected with her story. Women who saw themselves in her choices. Families who'd lost daughters to similar violence. Lauren speaks at every event, tells Kayla's story without sugarcoating it, without pretending her sister was a perfect victim who made no mistakes. She talks about how Kayla knew Terry had a girlfriend and pursued him anyway. How Kayla ignored her friend's warnings because she wanted to believe love could conquer complications. How Kayla blocked Sakina instead of reporting the harassing messages to police. Not to blame her sister, but to show that even smart, capable, loved women make choices that put them in danger. That victim blaming is garbage, But education and awareness can save lives. And the foundation has saved lives. Documented cases where women left situations because they recognized patterns Lauren described. But here's the part that breaks Lauren every single time she tells Kayla's story. The last text message Kayla sent to their mother, delivered at 11:23 p.m. on July 12, 2022. Hours before Sakina knocked on her door. Hours before everything ended. The message said, "I think I found the one, Mom. I know you're worried, but I really think this could be it." Diana still has that text saved, screenshots it, and sends it to Lauren on bad days. And they cry together over the hope in those words. The future Kayla imagined that would never happen. Kayla never got to open that cocktail lounge she'd been saving for. Never got to book one of those destination weddings she'd been researching. Never got to see her nephew grow up or stand beside Lauren at her wedding or experience any of the ordinary moments that make up a life. She got 23 years and then nothing, erased by someone who thought she deserved it more. And the cruelest part, the detail that makes this entire tragedy even more senseless, is that Terry didn't choose either of them. He chose himself. He chose convenience and cowardice, and the path of least resistance. And when the consequences of his choices became too heavy, when one woman was dead and another was imprisoned, he changed his name and started over like none of it ever happened. Sakina sacrificed everything for a man who married someone else. Kayla died loving a man who was already planning his escape. And Terry walks free, living under an assumed name, pretending he's not responsible for the collision he created. Let me show you the 3 warning signs that everyone in this story ignored, the moments where intervention could have prevented a murder. Warning sign number 1. When you're monitoring instead of trusting. The moment Sakina ordered that GPS tracker on June 30th, 2022, she crossed a line most people don't even realize exists. This wasn't casual location sharing. This was covert surveillance, hiding a device under someone's car without consent. And here's what nobody wants to admit. If you need that level of evidence, you already have your answer. You don't trust this person, but instead of leaving, you gather proof. You screenshot messages, check timestamps, analyze Instagram activity like you're building a legal case. Maybe you think you need concrete evidence before you can justify ending things. But the moment you start tracking someone, you've already decided the relationship is over. You're just torturing yourself with details. Sakina watched Terry drive to Kayla's apartment repeatedly, watched proof of betrayal accumulate in real time. Instead of leaving, she let that evidence feed her rage until monitoring became hunting. Warning sign number 2. When being chosen becomes your entire identity. Sakina's whole sense of self was wrapped up in being Terry's woman. Her friends testified she couldn't talk about anything else. Every conversation circled back to him. She'd built her entire personality around this relationship. So when it was threatened, she wasn't just losing a boyfriend. She was losing herself. Kayla didn't represent romantic competition. She represented ego death, the complete destruction of identity. And for someone whose self-worth depended on being chosen, that reality was unbearable. Warning sign number 3. When you ignore what people show you. Terry showed both women exactly who he was. He lied constantly, maintained separate phones, told each woman what she wanted to hear. His friends knew. Their friends knew. But Sakina and Kayla refused to see it because they believed what they wanted over what was right in front of them.